Hi, my name is Crystal and welcome to All About Books. Please subscribe to my channel, and if you like my video, please click like. Today I'd like to talk about the importance of a character to a novel. I know myself as a reader, the moment I crack open the book, I know if I want to follow that character on the journey for 200, 600 pages. You're looped in very quickly to their personality. As a writer, you know your character's hair color, their eyes, all the physical appearance, as well as all the little idiosyncrasies of their personality. And if you are a writer and you are having trouble developing your characters, I've included a link below to my website where I do provide some tools and tips for writing characters. And for those of you who are here for a reading, I would like to read from one of my favorite writers, Alan Bradley. This is a very well-worn book. It's The Weed That Strings the Hangman's Bag. Alan Bradley, to me, does a great job developing all of his characters. In particular, his main character, Flavia de Luce. She is a precocious 11-year-old sleuth, and her personality, I think, is just fantastic. And I'll just read an excerpt from this book because in a very short time, you can see her personality shine through. When the novel starts, Flavia is in the graveyard of the local church, and she's kind of daydreaming about her funeral and the reactions of her family. So that kind of gives you a little snippet into her personality right there. And she notices off in the distance a woman who's crying. So where I will read from this excerpt, she's just started a conversation with this lady. Mother Goose? I have never much cared for flippant remarks, especially when others make them, and in particular, I don't give a frog's fundament for them when they come from an adult. It has been my experience that facetiousness in the mouth of someone old enough to know better is often no more than a camouflage for something far, far worse. And yet, in spite of that, I found myself swallowing the sharp and deliciously nasty retort that was already on the tip of my tongue, and instead managed a deluded smile. Mother Goose, I repeated dubiously. She burst into tears again, and I was glad that I had held my tongue. I was about to be instantly rewarded by hearing something juicy. Besides, I had already begun to detect a slight but invisible attraction between this woman and myself. Could it be pity? Or was it fear? I couldn't say. I knew only that there was some deep-seated chemical substance inside one of us that was crying out to its long-lost complement. Or was it its antidote in the other? I put a hand gently on her shoulder and held out my handkerchief. She looked at it skeptically. It's all right, I said. They're only grass stains. That set her off into a remarkable contortion. She buried her face in the handkerchief, and her shoulders quaked so violently I thought for a moment she was going to fly to pieces. To allow her time to recover, and because I was rather embarrassed by her outburst, I wandered off a little in the distance to examine the inscription on a tall, weathered gravestone that marked the grave of one Lydia Green, who had died in 1638 at the age of 135 years. Had Lydia lived, I reflected, she would now be 447 years old, and probably a person well worth getting to know. Oh, I feel such a chump. I turned to see the woman dabbing at her eyes and giving me a damp grin. I'm Nyla, she said, sticking out her hand, Rupert's assistant. I fought back my revulsion and gave her fingers a lightning quick shake. As I had suspected, her hand was wet and sticky. As soon as I was decently able, I slid my own hand out of sight behind my back and wiped it on the back of my skirt. Assistant, the word popped out of my mouth before I could stop it. Oh, I know the vicar assumed that I'm Rupert's wife, but it's not like that. Honestly, it's not like that at all. I glanced over involuntarily at Porson's puppet's van. She spotted it at once. Well, yes, we do travel together. I suppose Rupert and I have what you might call a great affection for one another. But husband and wife? What kind of a fool did she take me for? It was no more than a week since Staffy had been reading aloud to Freely and me from Oliver Twist, and I knew, as surely as I knew my own name, that this woman Nyla was Nancy to Robert Porson's Bill Sykes. Didn't she realize that I'd spotted the filthy great bruise on her upper arm? Actually, it's such a joy rattling around England with Rupert. He's recognized everywhere we go, you know. Just the day before yesterday, for instance, we were playing at Market Selby when we were spotted in the post office by a fat lady in a flower pot hat. Rupert Porson, she shrieked. Rupert Porson uses the Royal Mail just like everyone else. Nyla laughed, and then she begged him for his autograph. They always do, you know. Insisted he put best wishes from Snotty the squirrel. When he does it that way, he always draws a couple of nuts. She claimed she wanted it for her nephew, but I knew better. When you're on the road a lot, you develop a certain sense of these things. You can always tell. She was prattling. If I kept quiet, it wouldn't be more than a minute before she would be confiding her size in knickers. Someone at the BBC told Rupert that 23% of his viewing audience is made up of childless housewives. Seems like a lot, doesn't it? But there's something about the magic kingdom that satisfies one's innate desire for escape. That's the exact way they put it to Rupert, one's innate desire for escape. Everyone needs to escape, don't they? In one way or another, I mean. Everyone but Mother Goose, I said. She laughed. Look, I wasn't pulling your leg. I am Mother Goose. At least I am when I put on my costume. Just wait until you see it. Tall witch's hat with a floppy brim and silver buckle, a gray wig with dangling ringlets, and a great puffy dress that looks like it once belonged to Mother Shipton. You do know who Mother Shipton was. Of course I did. I knew that she was some old crone who was supposed to have lived in the 16th century and seen into the future, predicting, among other things, the Great Plague, the Great Fire of London, aeroplanes, battleships, and that the world would come to an end in 1881. That, like those of Nostradamus, Mother Shipton's prophecies were in doggerel verse. Fire and water shall do wonders, and all that. I also knew that there are actually still people running around loose today who believe she foresaw the use of heavy water in the making of the atomic bomb. As for myself, I didn't believe a word of it. It was nothing but a load of old tosh. I've heard the name, I said. Well, never mind. That's who I resemble when I'm all tarted up for the show. Brilliant, I said, not meaning it. She could see that I was a bit put off. What's a nice girl like you doing hanging out in a place like this? She said with a grin, taking in the whole of the churchyard with a wave of her hand. I often come here to think, I said. This seemed to amuse her. She pursed her lips and put on an annoying, stagey voice. And what does Flavia de Luce think about in her quaint old country churchyard? Being alone, I snapped, without meaning to be intentionally rude. I was simply being truthful. Being alone, she said, nodding. I could see that she was not put off by my bristling reply. There's a lot to be said for being alone, but you and I know, don't we, Flavia, that being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. I brightened a bit. Here was someone who seemed at least to have thought through some of the same things as I had. No, I admitted. There was a long silence. Tell me about your family, Nyla said. There's not much to tell, I said. I have two sisters, Ophelia and Daphne. Feely's 17 and Daffy's 13. Freely plays the piano, Daffy reads. Father is a philanthropist. He's devoted to his stamps. And your mother? Dead. She was killed in an accident when I was a year old. Good Lord, she said. Someone told me about a family that lived in a great rambling old mansion not far from here. An eccentric colonel and a family of girls running wild. You're not one of them, are you? She saw instantly by the look on my face that I was. So that is a small sample of a character who has been developed really well by its author, Alan Bradley. And in a very short span, you can just see her personality oozing through. You know that she's clever, she's perceptive, and she's a force to be reckoned with. So you can just imagine her as a detective set in this ancient village in England. I will provide a link to Alan Bradley's website so you can see some of his novels. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy all of the characters that you're currently reading about.